But that's what he's doing.
But I think we've evolved since tradition. Like, I think traditional ways can evolve from,
definitely.
if we were doing everything we were doing in the 1800s, we'd be fucking murdering each other and cutting each other's heads off and meeting
and
each other
that's how
at
it
the saloon.
should be.
And that is why America is great.
Flip a coin. I think we really need to have showdowns at fucking noon again.
Social media is seriously it's such a huge, it's almost it's the only way to get yourself out there. If Snoop Dogg wants to communicate how he feels about the president, I'm just saying he's much better off making a music video that he knows millions of people are going to watch to show how he feels about the president, opposed to
are you saying writing a letter to Congress doesn't work?
Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me.
I have written 3 letters, and I've
gotten 4 automated responses.
All of them said thank you for your response.
Yeah.
Hi, why the fuck notters? How you guys doing out there? We are back with another episode for your ass. It's been a little while since we've been able to sit down. We've had a pretty hectic couple weeks, but hey, Dwight, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm on this new journey of dad life and just kind of like getting my bearings and learning to be a dad. I know I've probably said this for the last couple of weeks now, but there's a new challenge, and she tests me every single day, and yeah, the shitting hasn't ended, and the crying hasn't ended really, and she's still a baby. So
yeah, she's not 6 yet. What the fuck? I thought
we'd be talking about this by now, and
no, she's learning to drive.
It's like, geez, things go by quick. That's what I keep hearing.
That's what. Yeah, but seriously, she's over a month now, and time has gone by really quick, and I for the most part I think now I kind of got my bearings on what it's like to have a baby at the house. We're kind of a bit more on a routine. Like, I understand when I need to be awake. We know when to put her down. We understand what she likes. Like, there's a whole bunch of learning curves when it comes to a baby. Like, she didn't like when Christy was drinking milk, right? She didn't like the dairy products. She would cry because she would get these stomach aches. And then there's special ways you can burp her to help her burp better. And sometimes there's a trillion things that you kind of just like have to see, like what she likes and what she doesn't like, and the best ways to go about things. And we've kind of figured it out over the month, so we kind of know what upsets her, and if she's crying a certain way, what it usually means. Okay, we fed her, we've done this. Okay, she probably needs to burp again, or maybe we got to push her legs in so she can shit herself, or whatever it is. But you kind of get a bearing on like what it's like, and it's honestly taught me so much. It's taught me about patience, and like, because if you got to, honestly, and I've said this, I'll say this again, I commend women for it, but to have a baby, like, and when she first started screaming, like the first week and stuff, and she'd cry and she'd scream, and I have her in my arms, I was like, oh Jesus, like, this is, I don't know if I could do it. Like, seriously, you're about to lose it so many times. Yeah. Seriously, so many times you're like, I don't know if I could do this. What the fuck was I thinking? And then like near now when she cries, it's kind of like, all right, what is it? What do you need here? Okay, you want, like, it just kind of like, it goes in like, not, I don't want to say one ear and out the other, but there's crying as like a form of communication, not a form of like screaming and losing your mind and you being terrified of it.
So did you find in the past month that you would like lose it on shit that had nothing to do with what your life is? You'd be like driving and you're just
absolutely.
I will fucking choke you.
I will fucking
if you don't
murder
fucking
you.
put your signal on. Whatever it is, like.
You're testy all the time.
Yeah, like every little thing.
Every little thing, just like because you're sleep deprived. All your attention is put towards. It's not about yourself anymore. Like before, I knew if I was getting stressed, or I knew it's like, okay, I have to work out, and I know I got to exercise. Or if I felt, tired, it was like, okay, because I'm not eating properly. But now it's like you don't have time to make the meals, you don't have time to exercise, and any other spare time you want to almost relieve mom from her job because she's with her all the time.
Yeah, constantly.
So it's no longer about you and how you can like, I was used to my routines, my patterns, and coming to do this podcast once a week, and I had all my things kind of like set in place that I knew kept my good balance, and I knew what I needed to do to have a good work balance, and I wasn't losing it at work, and if I was stressed, and that just, it goes all to shit, right? The strategies are out the window, and now it's, trying to figure out how to do that all again and commit all your time to a baby, right? So it's,
As a selfish person, this seems like too much work.
It's a lot.
I'm going to get me a Tamagotchi.
She's like, well, where do you get your 12 hours to sit there and vape? Or how do you fit your 12 hours of vaping?
I don't sit there and vape.
Okay, it's like in CSGO. And like...
It's amazing how much, and then you always, like, all I think is like, what did I do with my time? Honestly, I don't understand what happened before with all my time.
You had fun.
Oh my God. Like, that? What the fuck does that mean now?
See, here's the thing: is that from what I like, you're gonna learn to appreciate these moments a little bit more,
and
you
have.
get them. You know, like you don't get them nearly as often, and when you do get the chance to have those things, it's like great. You get like, sweet, today's a day I get to actually release. You know,
and
like,
sometimes you just need to vent, and you know it's because you're fucking tired that you're cranky. You know it, like you know inside that you're angry because you're tired, and you're both aware of it. Like Christy's aware of it, I'm aware of it, and we'll be sitting there at like 4 a.m, like this morning, and oh no, this was yesterday morning.
Arguing over kale or something.
Yeah, and she was crying,
Yelling
and we were
at
both
each other.
just sitting there like, who gets the baby next, or what's gonna happen? You know,
Rock,
and you're
paper,
tired.
scissors.
And you're just like, we sat on the couch, and it was just like, I wish I could fucking rip your face off right now and throw it down the drain. If I could poison you, I would poison you. And we were just going back and forth, like, I want to murder you. And I don't want to kill you. I just want you to be in a coma forever that you never awaken from. You know?
Yeah, I would like. I don't really want you dead, but
No,
I mean, if you never talk again or move,
you know,
that'd be
like,
fantastic.
Just get it out. Yeah, exactly. Just get it out, like verbal diarrhea, you know. And then we both go to sleep, and then we wake up, and it's like, oh, I love you. Like, this is so nice, baby, sleeping.
I totally
You were
didn't
the best.
mean any of that.
No, we didn't mean it. We were both tired. Let's give ourselves a break. She's the asshole.
It's nothing to do with us. We're good people.
We're good people. Yeah. So,
That's fucking hilarious.
yeah, it's good. I'm getting used to it though, and I'm figuring it out. So, and I'm learning to live with less sleep, and I'm feeling much better about everything. And I'm not that I wasn't feeling good about things.
No,
but,
it's still an
I'm learning
adjustment,
to
right?
live. That's all. I'm learning to live with a baby. Whereas I think for new parents out there, like, you can talk about it all you want, and people always tell you like how hard it is to have a baby and how much work it is. And I think you don't understand it. Like I thought I understood it, and I don't think you understand it until
really
you do
don't.
have a baby. And you're like, holy fuck, it is a lot of work. Like,
Yeah, I got a friend right now that's just hitting his third baby.
Oh,
And he's like, the second
God.
one was an accident, and I remember when he had the baby, or when
Tell
they
him
had.
to stop hitting babies.
Jesus.
He's just hitting his third baby.
oh my
It's like, I
God.
just shook it for like an hour. It was okay.
Backhanded it.
He's on his third right now, but the second one was an accident. When it happened, he was like freaking the fuck out. He's like, I don't know if I can do this again. We already went through this. He said the second time, like, now that he's
Way
on
easier,
the
right?
third one was a plan. Like they
Oh,
were like,
okay.
oh yeah, it was so much easier. We know what to do. Plus the other kids are kind of helping out with the baby,
Yep.
and like they're not like amazing, you know. Like it's not like, oh, here, take the baby for an hour while I fuck off to bingo or something.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
But
of
like
course,
he's like helping bring groceries in. It's like bringing the family together even stronger. And now they're going for a third one, you know. And like
It makes sense. It makes sense because I'm sure, and like I'm starting to feel at that point now where it's like I could see the first month is the hardest.
of course,
And it's a new thing and it's screaming, but I could definitely see like maybe 2, maybe 3 being a lot easier just because you know what to expect. You're not terrified of every little thing. You understand like what they like quicker. I get it. I could see myself now. If you asked me a month ago, which I'm pretty sure you did, I would be like, "There's no fucking way in hell I'm having another one of these."
no fuck.
But now I'd be like, okay, yeah, like it's the worst. I think is past now. Like she's not crying as much and she's sleeping, and I'm learning to live with it. So
That's great.
I
That's
get
great.
it.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
I really am.
thanks.
Aaron, how about yourself? How you doing?
Well, I've had a lot of stress taking care of my cat. You know,
Yeah, I
it's
saw
been
your
really
videos.
rough.
Clean up its litter once a week.
Yeah.
Like, once a week, I kind of kick the box to
Give it
just
some
shake it a bit.
attention sometimes.
Yeah. Throw it some catnip occasionally. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work. It's really stressing on me.
It's really fucking taken away from my vaping.
My professional vaping career.
Yeah.
That's a thing. There's like YouTube reviewers that
I know, I've seen
I've
it. It's
watched
fucking
it.
like the
It's
vape
competitive
Olympics and
vaping.
stuff.
I know
Yeah.
people who
Shut
do
the
it,
fuck
and it's like I hate
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
It's so dumb. Like, oh wow, like I think competitive. Like when you're being competitive, there should have something to it. you know?
Talent.
Yeah, like talent. Like you've learned how to put a battery power in there that's like stronger to get a higher fucking vapor. However the fuck it
Well,
works, I don't
it's-
care.
it was
and then you're
about
doing like
building
these
it.
extra things. You know, like I get the concept of what
Yeah.
they're doing, but it's not an Olympic thing. You know,
To me, it's like,
I've heard
how
vape
did this
Olympics
dude
as an actual
train to be
word.
this good at it? Like, was he just sitting or doing, like, just smoking all day long?
Yeah, basically.
Like, is
That's what they're doing.
I saw one of them on America's Got Talent.
Yeah,
Like, it
shut
was
the
one. It was
fuck
like
up.
literally like one of his.
I don't.
It was like an
Did he
audition,
get
and
passed?
yeah, he did. The judges were like, "What?
The
This is fucking
fuck?
crazy!" Like they're all just like looking in amazement. It's like
I'm pretty
what?
sure that guy was a joke.
Every
He-
stoner in fucking the world could do this downstairs in the basement. Like, what do you mean?
that guy was a joke. He like went on. I'm pretty sure that was like a sarcasm thing.
He made it.
I can hope.
I know he passed the first round. I know that much. So, but blows my fucking mind because I don't think it's like much talent to
Yeah,
it.
see, I'm the opposite of that. I'm ashamed of my vaping.
Yeah, are you?
No.
No.
Not really. I don't care.
Did
but-
you smoke before you vaped?
Of course.
And how much
I
did you
smoked
smoke?
for like I smoked half a pack a day for like 6 years.
What?
Yeah. I didn't just pick up vaping like one of those.
You didn't just buy it because it was cool and trendy at the
No.
time?
I needed to quit smoking. That's what it's supposed to be.
A lot of people do that to quit smoking. And I know like 3 people that are doing it currently, and it's
Yeah.
been like over a year that they've been doing this now, and they still have like the tobacco intake.
Well,
in the vape.
The thing is, it's
You're losing
nicotine.
some of the chemicals, which all the chemicals, right?
I don't want to spend a whole hour
We can
talking
ramble
about
about this?
vaping.
Yeah,
Okay.
he'd rather be vaping for the hour than talking about it for the
Rather
hour.
I'll do
spend
this
12
on
hours
my vaping YouTube channel.
I'll show you some of this.
That's something I never got. I probably never will. Same thing with like curling in the Olympics. I understand it as a sport. I just don't understand it as an Olympic
jumped
thing.
over there.
Comparing vaping to
Yeah,
curling.
just
Well,
like
I mean-
curling in the Olympics. Came out of nowhere. Okay. Obviously does not like curling, and you just like get that off his chest.
It's like women's basketball. I just don't get it.
No.
I honestly don't, but
Why?
Well, anyway,
why
I
curling
haven't
in the
spent my whole
Olympics?
week vaping. That's not how my week has been.
How many
so
hours
you
in a
pet the
week?
cat a few times too.
We had our last paintball of the season, so there's no
yes.
more paintball. And Devin decided to walk the gauntlet instead of running.
That was
it.
super sad to watch.
It kind of
Sad?
was.
It,
Yeah.
it was like
exhilarating.
when I watched it, I was like, it was sad to me. I was like, it's this guy's birthday. He was screaming in pain. He didn't want to say
Hey, man.
say
he
anything to
did this
anyone
to
afterwards.
himself.
This is
though.
he
It was
wanted to
for
do
sure. There for
He's
sure.
been talking about this for weeks.
Nobody told him he had to do it. Any point.
No, it was
Nobody was
definitely
like,
his
you need to
idea.
do this. He's like, I have to do this. I'm like, why do you have to do this? Who's telling you have to do it? And he's like, well, me. And I'm like, well, then tell yourself not to. Like, that's all you have to
And
do.
why is he walking? Where did that idea come from?
Because he wants to. He's trying to prove. I don't know. He's
Is
trying to be like.
that what it is?
manly
Is it
kind of
peacocking? Is that what it is?
Yes.
I feel that he built his own self in his head so much that he had to do this.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what
Like, was he
happened.
happy afterwards? Was
Oh,
he
yeah,
like that was?
definitely.
Oh, he was.
Well, you don't understand when you. Okay, well, I've run
I
it.
kind of understand. Oh, I don't understand.
I kind of
that,
understand.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten hit with paintballs.
Yeah, see, but like it's a rush when you willingly put yourself in danger for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
The rush is insane. It's like it's the same reason people.
Is
do
it the same rush as like
skydiving.
just have like?
as like a line of coke?
No, like I'm saying, if you're
I
having a normal
think
match,
it's
like a normal match of
comparable.
paintball.
No.
Like, say if you went shirtless for a normal match of paintball
No,
versus
because
walking the gauntlet, like
in a
what's more
normal match of
exhilarating?
paintball, you can hide, you can take yourself out. It's a mental
This you're
thing.
vulnerable. Okay,
Yeah,
sure,
you're
yeah,
just
yeah.
like for 30 seconds, this is gonna hurt like fuck, and
Yeah,
there's
okay.
nothing I can do about it.
yeah,
And then when you're done,
yeah.
It's I don't know. Like I've been shot enough by the fucking paintballs that like it stings like a motherfucker. But I would not want to have it like 300
I don't mind getting hit,
balls
but
getting
yeah.
shot at me like this.
300 no, one of the guns shoots 30 balls per second, and he was being shot for 30 seconds.
I
and
saw
there
the
was
lineup.
30 people. There was at least 1,000 balls shot at him. I have a video
and
of
did
it.
he-
I
was
slowed
he
it
marked
down.
up,
It's
like-
beautiful. Yeah, oh man,
I like
he's
nobody-
covered.
Nobody held back on it either. I can't remember the guy that you said had
Luke.
that gun. Luke had the fucking like. He not only had his gun, but
I know,
he
he
also
had,
had
like,
the
a
thing
bag,
like dumped
like,
inside
yeah.
of it so that it would
man.
continue dumping
Yeah.
as he shoots.
No,
And it's an
we
automatic
gave this
gun,
man
right?
no mercy.
Yeah, you can tell. You can definitely tell that.
There was a guy using, they're called first strike rounds, so they're just super accurate rounds. So he was just sitting there, like everyone else was just unloading. He was sitting there just like picking off shots,
Oh.
and he hit him like every time.
Oh,
fucking terrible. Like I saw the video and I felt so bad for him.
Yeah, I did
but
too.
then I remembered he did it to himself.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, fuck that asshole.
And like he went the worst day because it was like the coldest day, so that all the
balls are all
paintballs like
hard, too,
bounced
eh?
and shit,
Oh.
and
Wait.
it hurts a lot more when it bounces.
Oh,
you
yeah.
sent me a picture of like all this paint all over him. I'm like, ooh, that does not look fucking comfortable. And then you sent me a next picture of his dick area, and
Of
it's
his
like
jock.
Oh, his
nothing.
jock?
I'm like,
Yeah.
wow. I just started laughing. I'm like,
Oh.
Jesus Christ, you're lucky you wore that jock strap.
He was covered. Like he took
Yeah.
off the shirt he was wearing and had to like wring out the paint.
So let's say he didn't have the jock. What do
Yeah.
you do? Like, do you just fucking like
You go
Silence of
straight
the
to the
Lambs it
hospital.
all the way?
You
Just
go
tuck
straight-
it in the back
yeah.
and just go?
you need a jock. You would have. That would
Yeah,
have
no.
been.
I was
your balls would
scared.
have exploded.
I was scared running it
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't even want to run it, to be honest with you.
No,
Like,
me
to
either.
sit
No,
there and
it's
walk
fine.
it, like, I gotta give him, like, props that he said he was going to do it, and he lasted, like, 30
It's tough.
seconds.
No doubt about it.
He made
That's
it
tough.
90% of the way before he had to throw his hands
His
up.
wiener for sure grew 3 inches. That day.
Yeah,
There's
he
no-
was 3 inches.
3 inches. 3 inches
It
longer.
was 1 before he's
Testosterone
sitting on
that
4,
was
baby.
pumped.
That's 4.
It was almost average.
Well, sounds like he had a pretty good week, though. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounded like a lot of fun. Like, I
It
would
was
have...
fun. I didn't get shot that much.
I don't know. I only got the one time, so I'm hoping that next year I'm able to
Go
like
a
spend a
few more.
lot more time. Yeah, like I really enjoyed myself. So
Yeah, that's good.
And I've been a lot more active since I've been doing that, so I feel like I can actually get going a little bit more. I don't know.
Yep.
I would really like to do it a little bit more next year, so I'm going to try and make time for that.
How was your week? How you been?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's been a good week and a bad week for a couple of reasons. A good week, just I feel that work's just working really well. I hired some new people. Things are going smoothly. Things are strong. I'm feeling confident with the line. We've figured out some problems that we had to figure out. We got our times down. Things are good. Like in the life of Ed has been pretty good there. In the household, we've just been kind of like getting some things set up. We're going to be getting some new furniture in here. Not furniture, but like stands, shelving units to kind of help with the record collection.
Organizing is always a good feeling.
Oh, exactly. And I've been buying quite a few records over the past couple days. So I picked up a couple holes in my I picked up a couple holes in my collection that I really wanted to get my hands on. So happy about that. Sad news. I guess it was 2 days ago in the evening. A Canadian icon passed away. His name was Gordon Downey. For those of you that don't know the band, the Tragically Hip, he was the lead singer of the Tragically Hip. I didn't word myself as well as I wanted to when I posted some stuff online about it, but like he's kind of like, he embraces everything that Canada is, and Canada embraces him as kind of like the
Lead singer
face
of their nation.
yeah, the face of their nation, you know, like
Sure.
even more so than like our prime minister.
Yeah, 'cause screw that guy.
But he basically did everything there was, like from the very beginning when he first started it. He never once didn't like announce like I'm proud to be Canadian. He's done that from the very beginning.
For sure.
And a lot of bands back then, that's suicide saying something like that. If you're a Canadian band, you got like no radio play in the States whatsoever, and he did not care. But the fact that he passed away, I can't remember if it was bowel cancer or skin cancer.
It was a cancer, I'm pretty sure.
I can't remember exactly which one it was, and we've known
Wasn't it
for
colon
almost a
cancer?
year.
Was it colon
I thought it was colon cancer, but we've known this for about a year now that this was happening, and we knew it was going to happen sooner or later. And he did a final farewell concert, which was a fucking amazing concert.
You know what? I want to just tell a quick story about that concert because he did that. It was like you said, it was a year ago, and he did it in his hometown, Kingston.
Yeah.
And I remember I worked that night, and everyone knew about this concert that was happening. Like, oh, I bet you, I remember the stats came out after.
It was insane.
More than half of Canada was watching this concert. And the coolest thing ever was I was working that night, and there was probably 40 people in the lounge. And I had most of them all come up to me and say, like, hey, the concert's on. Can you please put the concert on? Can you put the concert on? And of course, yes, I definitely want to do that. So I put there was Jets game on that night. There was everything. No one wanted to watch any of that. Everyone wanted to just watch this concert. So I literally turned every single TV in the lounge onto this concert. Everyone asked to put the sound on, so I put the sound on, and all 40 people, even in the VLTs, stopped what they were doing, all stood up, and you know those 3 big TVs that were facing the wall? Everyone just stood up, and for like 1 hour, just like nonstop, we're just like rocking out to Gordy, and we had it cranked, and everyone was just like,
That's sick.
amazing. It was the coolest thing ever to see. It was so unique. It was neat.
So it was brain cancer. He passed away.
Oh, brain
okay.
cancer, okay.
So I've said this about a lot of different people that have passed away in the history of like music and stuff like that. There's a certain group of people, like a very exclusive club of people that when they pass away, the world stops for a minute. For instance, Tom Petty recently passed away. The world didn't stop for Tom Petty. People just kind of made mention of it, and it happened.
Yeah.
Even though he is a very big person. But if you flip to when David Bowie died,
David Bowie, yeah.
everybody stopped for David Bowie for a minute.
I think it's because Tom Petty died so close to a massacre.
That is true too, but I still don't think it would have had the same impact
No.
as like something like this, where in Canada, Gordon Downey passing away. I'm sure in England just as important because they're huge out there. Him passing away actually made people stop in their tracks and think for a couple minutes about him and think about the stuff he's done, because this guy has done more for Canada than almost anybody.
The indigenous people with all the free, he's done like countless of free concerts. The first concert I ever seen from him was in 2000.
We had another Canadian icon die. The guy who played the guy in Trailer Park Boys died.
Jim Leahy.
Yeah, Jim Leahy. Yeah, he's just as on the same level as Gordon Downey. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Aaron.
thanks a
appreciate
lot,
that.
I think he is.
He's really
That's
taking
awesome.
that.
That's
right.
good.
I thought he was pretty high in Canadian.
Yeah, but he never spilled a drink when he fell. Good for him. Yeah, it was good.
Wrong guy.
Oh yeah, that's right. I don't know. I barely watched that show. So Gordon was a very charitable man. Everything he's ever done has been very charitable, to the point that the band, when in their last year, everything that they did tour-wise and album-wise, because they released another album, every single dollar went to his family.
Oh, his family?
Yeah, because his family, they was making sure his family was set for afterwards. After all this,
Cool.
I'm sure they did a lot of donations on top of that as well.
Cool.
But yeah, their family, they was just making sure his family was set and was okay, because he was passing away right away. But people that watched that concert, like, he had a breaking moment halfway through where he was like,
teared up a bit.
It was a very powerful moment. I think in the last year he also released 2 solo albums. So
he was pretty sick too at that time. Like,
Yeah.
he was close to, was stage 3?
Oh yeah.
Like he was like ill, like when and
He
the
held out
only reason he
longer.
did it was just for the fans, for the band members. Like he
lived and breathed them, like tragically hip.
And the thing with the hip is, like, I think another reason why everyone stood still, like what you're talking about, how he was so impactful, was all his songs were written about either some Canadian monument, some Canadian city, somewhere in, Wheat Kings in the prairies.
Well, Wheat Kings, do you know the story on that one? That's crazy. Wheat Kings is a story about a guy that got...
Isn't the army or something?
No, he got charged with rape and got...
He
got charged with rape and put in prison. And it was wrongfully charged because later they went through the DNA evidence on it, and he got acquitted from everything and taken out. But the thing that this guy did, which was so fucking crazy, is he had parole hearings in between when all this happened, and he refused to take the parole hearings because that would admit that he was guilty in the first place. So he refused to take parole hearings in the meantime until he was proven that he did not do this thing. So, like, all the years in jail that he just stuck around because he's like, I'm proving a point. Like, that deserves a song right there. I think that's like.
And he's singing about the Canadian culture. He's singing about small towns.
Yeah, even our prime minister came out and like made a video of him like crying.
Oh, he was crying and stuff. Did you see that one?
Oh yeah, well they're friends. They were actual like close friends.
Even when he gave him that huge shout out at the final concert there in Kingston, and he talked on stage for a while there, and it's cool. He was
unbelievable. So I figured we could take like 5 minutes, kind of talk about our favorite moments, if you have one, or just stuff you know about them, if you're not a big fan or anything. Because like, I'll start off real simple. I've got 2. I got one when I was real young, because when I was young, I've talked about my brother. I've talked about how his music influenced me before. Very, very punk, and I wouldn't listen to soft rock music. Like, it was always punk, hard. Henry Rollins or Misfits or Danzig, stuff like this. That would be very loud and in your face stuff. And then my brother, I remember him coming home with the very first Tragically Hip album. He's like, I got this album. I'm like, oh, fuck, like, seriously, the hip? And he ended up putting on, just like blaring it in his room. And it was like his first CD or close to it, because they just got the CD player, like a ghetto blaster. So it was loud as fuck and really clear. And I would hear that pumping out of his room. And the most impactful thing that I think Tragically Hip ever did for me is they widened my music perspective. Like, it was all just this one fucking thing. I didn't care about anything else, and then I started hearing this like Courage, like all these fucking great goddamn songs throughout the years. I never really admitted to being a fan of Tragically Hip, which is going to bleed into the second part of the story. Like, I was just like, I'm so hardcore with all this stuff, and I can't be a fucking hip fan. So we kept going, and then when I was taking a trip out to Banff with my friend Carson, I wanted some music for the fucking road, and we pulled over in some fucking mall, and they had like the Your Hits, Our Hits compilation. It's a double disc of all the shit. I bought it because it was $10 and threw it in, and like as we were driving, I'm like, man, I like this song. It's a good song. I forgot that I like this song, and then we'd go on the next song and play, and be like, man, I like this song too. By the end, I liked every single fucking song so much. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm a fucking hip fan, and I didn't realize I was until I got the greatest hits, and then I just started fucking going and like listening. I'm like, I realized just how strong of a hip fan I actually was, and like how impactful. Without me trying, they made me a fan. Like, I wasn't trying to listen to the music, but I'm like, man, I know like all the words to almost all these songs. Of course, as we're going along, 100th Meridian is still one of like my favorite songs.
So again,
I fucking love them.
They're really legendary. Like, they have a very distinct and unique like voice. Like, you hear a hip song, you instantly know it's there.
Oh yeah.
And like, I was never a big Tragically Hip fan, but I remember back when radio was a thing. You guys remember sitting around listening to the old radio?
Radio is still around.
No, it's not. I don't know what you heard.
I'm pretty sure if you turn on your car,
We're listening to it
No,
on the
no,
way
no,
here.
no. I've heard of online radio.
It's because you don't have a vehicle.
that would be the reason why.
But I remember I would hear them all the time on the big station that was a thing, Power 97.
Yep. And they made a big deal every time they like put them on too. It's like
Yeah.
the hip songs coming up and whatever.
Yeah.
I think they had like a back-to-back hip at one point, like they did with Metallica.
Oh, I used to love Mandatory Metallica.
Yeah,
and when-
Mandatory Metallica.
Yeah, it would
That's
come
still a
on,
thing,
it's
isn't
like-
it?
Yeah, I think
so.
so.
Pretty
sure it
Yeah,
is.
Yeah,
it
it's
used to be
always
twice,
lunchtime.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be
sure
the
it is.
lunchtime thing that they would do or whatever.
And they had one at like 10 too. It used to be twice a day.
It was fucking awesome. But they did the same thing with the hip though too.
My
Yeah.
favorite, I know the hip, like it reminds me a lot of my, like, because I've traveled to BC and back probably, 16 times, more than that. It's been countless road trips, and I remember like my mom, she texted me when Gordy died like 2 days ago, and she's the only person she's ever been like emotionally tied to besides the Tragically Hip was Elvis. She cried bawled when Elvis died, but aside from that, she's never been like attached to a musical band like she had been the Hip, sorry. And she texted me when it happened yesterday or whatever in the morning, and she said, "You know what? I just remember this from us being in BC and listening to his music and getting through it." And she gave me like kind of like a little memoir on the Hip when we were kids, and she would blast the Hip all the time and rock out to it on our drive when we were 4 years old, driving us back and forth from BC. And it's just like a memory that I have instilled when the song El Dorado. It's I don't know if you guys know the song. It's not one of their popular ones, but
I know that song.
But it was just a song that always is like, once we hit the BC borders, it was like I remember that song always being on, and me and my sister always just like singing to that song. It was just like one of those childhood memories. And I remember when I was 16 and when I was driving up by myself for the first time, I stopped in this like shitty little town just outside of Brandon. And I stopped at a gas station because it was hot, my air conditioner died, and I had a long drive ahead of me, and I was going through Saskatchewan, and that's just like a boring ass drive. So I went to this gas station.
It really
It's the
is.
most exciting drive I've ever been on.
It's the only place that when you hit the border, you see Regina.
Oh,
like
it's
you're
the
like, oh,
worst.
there's
Yeah,
Regina.
exactly.
I'll see you in about 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. It's a vast prairie desert. So, anyways, I stopped in this gas station, and I picked up the Tragically Hip Greatest Hits album. And ever since then, the first song that came on was Wheat Kings. And I remember every single time I'd hit the Saskatchewan border, every other time I've ever drove to BC, I've always, when I hit the Saskatchewan border, it's Wheat Kings. For whatever reason it is, it just triggers me, and I got to listen to that song, and it helps me get me through that long stretch of highway. And
That's fair.
It's just like one little thing, but it brings me back to it every time I hear that song. So it's
I think the Tragically Hip are one of those very few bands that transcended generations too. Like at no point do I think they deviated from their sound or their feel or the lyrical content that they did from beginning to end, and not very many bands do that. I mean, fuck, if you look at Green Day's changed 6 times.
oh yeah.
Tragically Hip has been Tragically Hip the entire time, and
Through every
never
album,
changed. And it worked, like it's
And the
stayed.
coolest thing, like I remember seeing them in 2000 for the first time, and they were at the Forks. They were doing a fundraising concert at the Forks, so it was a free show for everyone. And I just remember the coolest thing I thought about them was like Gordy always does. Like if you ever watch a live performance from Tragically Hip, he always goes on these little rants for a couple minutes in between his songs. Like he's so. There was testimonials on 92 yesterday, and they were talking about how like there's very few artists that can just break apart in their song and just start talking and then jump right back into their act. And he would just stop and he would talk about maybe the politics that were going on at that time or whatever it was, but he'd take like a couple minutes in between each song to say, hey Canada, I'm here for you and I love you. And whether it be his last show where he's like, Trudeau, he's a good man and he's here for you guys, and trying to give some kind of reassurance to Canada. But he was always stopping, and it wasn't just a rock show. It was, like you said, he was carrying the culture through his shows and like making sure that we all knew we were there, we were all Canadian, we were all a part of something bigger than just music. And I thought there's very few artists that can really do that. And that's when Gordy passed away like 2 days ago. It was probably my most impactful. Like I've never been around. I've never been so emotionally connected to an artist like Gordy was, like me with Gordy. So it was really cool, and it was. I mean, to be a part of it as long as it was, and it's too bad it happened in a short-lived life at 53. Really, but he made worthwhile of his time on Earth. So
I feel that his death is one of those few that it's like your friend died. It almost feels like your friend died. Not a close friend, but a friend of yours passed away. I've only been emotionally attached to one other person that passed away that made a big difference for me, and that was Lemmy from Motorhead. I literally cried during his funeral. Like I watched the funeral and like legitimately cried when I was because at the very end they took the bass strummed it and then threw it against an amp and let the feedback take it out, and it was just that
cool.
was fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like, that was the way you need to fucking take it. That's a rock star's end.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see anything like just this past year for the Tragically Hip has been the perfect year for them. You know, like he's released two solo albums, and the final Tragically Hip album all came out within this past year, and it was just a fitting end where he was able to like get the expression of what he was dealing with and get that out. And I'm happy that the band is smart enough to know that this is their legacy and they're done. They're not going to go on without Gordie Howe. Sorry, I don't know why I said that, Gordie Howe. But they're not going to go out without them.
No, of course not.
They're going to keep going and leave the legacy the way that it is, and that's fucking fantastic because a lot of bands don't do that. Fuck, you can still go see Queen if you want.
Yeah, it's they were poets for sure. There was more to their lyrics than just songs.
Speaking of which, Poets is a great song.
Wicked song.
I fucking love that song. You just had to hear it.
But they were true poets, and they were doing. I know they had planned for him a what do you call those, like
memorial?
No, what are those concerts called?
Benefit concert.
Oh, you're talking a tribute concert.
Tribute concert.
Yeah.
They had one of those planned for him next year, I know, but because of his passing, I know they fast forwarded it, so I think it's in the next month or something, is they're going to be doing this tribute concert, and I think it's going to be a really cool thing to watch, and I bet you most of Canada will be watching it. So
I try and think of people that have done tribute concerts, like people that have passed away that have gotten, there's been very few, like the list of people is small. It's like Queen had a very awesome tribute concert with lots of people at Live Aid. Led Zeppelin. Well, I mean, most people of Led Zeppelin are still around. And people
they did like a tribute, like they
did their
tribute,
tribute,
they did a concert, and I thought it was
kind of finished off.
Yeah.
I think, there's very few that get that type of treatment on things, but I think it's fitting that he's getting it.
Yeah. Canada will be watching, I'm sure. Yeah. It's going to be wicked.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's the new Terry Fox.
Well, if you didn't know, this is why the fuck not?
What, did I kill it? Was that
thank you for that. You've totally fucked that up.
You're right.
Right.
Both fighting for cancer.
Yeah, he's the new
enough,
Terry Fox. He ran across the fucking country.
Thanks
with
for breaking that fucking emotional goddamn.
Twice,
okay? Yeah.
You're so good, Aaron. Fuck, this is why you're here.
Yeah.
Well, if you didn't know, this is why the fuck not, where three friends sit around one table and bring a topic of discussion for your listening pleasure. Today, we are finishing up or getting the second part of our conspiracy episode together. And today, what are we talking about, Aaron, since you're heading the whole line on this one?
Well, today I will be talking about the two massive sieges that were led in the 90s. One of them was Ruby Ridge, and one of them was Waco. I'm sure you've probably heard of at least Waco.
I've heard of both. Ruby Ridge I know nothing about, though. Like I know,
of people don't.
Yeah, very slim pickings on my knowledge on that one. I have a little bit more about Waco and kind of the stuff that's happened, and then the lead up. And the reason why I know that, though, is because of the Oklahoma City bombing. If I didn't know about that, I probably wouldn't know a lot about Ruby Ridge or Waco.
Waco and Oklahoma were very televised. Like, everything was... Like, the Waco siege, you could watch it live on TV when it was happening. There was a lot of reporters there.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, like it was like one of the, at that point, like these big events were starting to get filmed all the time, and people were catching it. It like became the generation of cameras.
Yeah.
Around in the 90s, so we were able to kind of like capture these things that were happening. But yeah, the Waco thing I know a little bit more about, but to hear more about Ruby Ridge is going to be fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so let's get right into it then. In Ruby Ridge, the main people at play here is Randy Weaver. That is probably the name I'm going to be saying the most. That is the guy who is actually who this all revolves around for the Ruby Ridge. So that was a siege that lasted 11 days. So basically, Randy Weaver and his family, they were kind of mad because they lived in Iowa, and there was a law that said that they couldn't homeschool their kids where they were. So
that's a weird fucking law to have. Like,
law.
why couldn't, like, it seems so standard nowadays that if you wanted to, you can do something like that.
Yeah, this is the 80s. I don't know.
Yes, yeah.
That's an aggressive law too, eh?
That is very aggressive, yeah.
Because you can't, like, maybe because you're not paying like that tax.
Maybe. I don't know why the law is there, but eventually they ended up moving to northern Idaho. They built a little cabin there.
Just go off the grid.
Yeah, that's
the idea?
You see, this kind of happens a lot with these types
Doesn't
of
last long,
yeah,
too.
yeah. I know a couple. Yeah, actually, yeah. I know a lot about Oklahoma, and off the grid is like used a lot in the story of Oklahoma. But go ahead, yeah.
So they expressed a lot of racist and anti-government views at this time. They were often heard talking about like anti-government stuff. They weren't in any sort of groups, like any like white nationalist groups or anything like that at this time.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems to be a big association later on is the white nationalists.
It comes.
Yeah.
It will come. So at this time, there was a big group called the Order. They were a Mormon white supremacist group that were obviously against Jews, because all these people are.
Mormon white supremacist group.
Yeah, it happens.
What the... I'm sorry, I got a headache.
If anything, it would be the Mormons. Because
Mormons are just all over the map, man.
It's
Seriously,
weird. Like,
they're all over
they
the
believe
place.
in the American Messiah, so if anything...
My dad was
this makes
alive
sense.
when the Mormon Bible came out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's fucked up.
But what version of it? Like, seriously. Seriously.
Well, it was written by a con artist.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The whole story, how it was written, is a whole fun. That could be a whole other podcast.
Just
because
watch
that's
the
a
South
funny,
Park episode.
Yeah, exactly.
The book, South Park episode actually
They nail it,
depicts
man.
So
yeah,
They
like,
nail
it's
it.
so
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you watch it. You'll get a real good idea of what's going on with that. It's like,
Anyways, let's move past.
yeah,
the
sorry.
Mormons.
Okay, continue. Yeah.
So
That is a good topic, though. I do want to talk about that at some point.
Sure.
this group known as the Order, they were responsible for they had been bombing and robbing some banks, and they also killed a Jewish talk show host named Alan Berg. The FBI was investigating them at this time. I think they mostly rounded up most of them, and then they turned their sights onto the Aryan nations.
What good has ever come out of a group called the Order or the New Order or
New-
any type
New
of order
World
with
Order.
a New World Order?
The Council.
Can you name one good fucking moment that's ever come out of a name like that? I can't think of one, except for like cheeseburgers when you're making an order or some shit. But
When it's associated with a group, it's
never good.
So it was a white supremacist group.
Yes,
Yeah.
this group was a white supremacist group, definitely. So at this point, the FBI started placing informants in the Aryan Nation headquarters, which is actually super close, about 70 miles to where Randy Weaver has built this new cabin. And during this time, he starts going to the Aryan Nation recruiting events. He just shows up, starts seeing what's up, because they do have very similar views.
So do you think they like flyered the fucking neighborhood or something?
Oh,
Like
probably.
how do you think he fucking figured it out?
He's pretty close. He's
yeah.
70 miles from them, and he already has these type of views.
Okay.
They always find each other.
Yeah, they really do. Like the worst groups tend to like just to each other. Like for whatever reason, they get attracted to each other. It's like pheromones coming from the fucking white supremacist heads or something. Like
It probably
we
is
don't
something like
secrete
this.
sweat. It's
I was
more
gonna
like
say,
a perfume.
It's
that
like
gets the other
motorcycle.
people.
It's guys with motorcycles. You know how they have the motorcycle nod? Like you just know instantly, like we're gonna be friends.
Yeah, let's
Well,
do
Just
this.
because we have this one common interest. Like you don't need to know them. Like you just.
So what do you think the white
just
supremacy
do it.
one is? Like
See, speaking of motorcycles,
just like my dick's this big. Okay, we're
They
friends.
carry a Mormon Bible.
swastika tattoos might have something to do with it.
That's exactly
That
what
might
it is.
actually.
Hey,
Well,
You have a
figured it out.
swastika on
you've
You're
been
right.
to jail, haven't you? So in 1984, the FBI had an informant named Gus Megasino. That's probably not how you pronounce it. That's as best as I can do. So he was posing as a gun-running biker, and he started a relationship with Randy Weaver in 1984. So then in 89, after 4 years of having this relationship, well, 4 or 5 years, Gus Megasino offers Weaver $700 for 2 illegally sawed-off shotguns.
This is where I clue in on the story. I've heard
Yeah.
it from here. Okay.
So there is a point where you are legally allowed to saw off the barrel of the shotgun.
A certain length, right?
Yes, but
Yeah.
once you go past that, it is an illegal gun.
Is this not where entrapment gets put in because the cop asked him to saw it off illegally?
Yeah, exactly. This is where a lot of the conspiracy comes in, and they're like, "Oh, he set him up."
Yeah, like that,
So-
that becomes entrapment at that point because you're purposely going out of your way to get him to do something illegal and paying him to do it.
Yeah, that nowadays would be seen as entrapment.
Okay, we're jumping ahead.
So Weaver ends up selling him the shotguns, but then that's basically the end of their relationship. They don't really hang out anymore. Hang out. It's just weird thinking of white nationalists. Just, hey, buddy, you want to go grab a coffee?
Want to have a fire?
Let's go to
This guy's
want to have
long.
a fire, put some hoods on. You know? We can dress up the horses if you really want
over
to.
for a fire tonight. You want to come down?
So
Have a weenie roast would be great.
Huge.
in 1990, the FBI arrests Weaver on these charges of selling guns, and
How much longer is that? Sorry.
that is 1 year later.
Okay.
So he ends the relation. Well, he sells the shotguns in 1989, and then he's arrested in 1990. So the government offers to drop the charges if Randy becomes an informant for the Aryan nations, which obviously he said no to, and he came to the Aryan nations and told them, "Hey, the FBI is probably trying to infiltrate you," which at this point they already had. So when he's arrested, he puts up his house in his first house in Idaho or whatever. He puts that up, and if he's found guilty, they will take that house. So he essentially puts it up for a bond. So in February of 1991, Weaver fails to appear in court, and at this point, he is a fugitive.
Yeah, failure to doing so. That's what the whole point of what is it, like bonds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that is the
So
whole
they
point is
say,
like you're going to guarantee you're going to be here in court.
If you
at
don't
this
show
point,
up,
and then
or
we
if
got
you're
one
found
stuff,
guilty, they'll take it. So at this point, they basically own the house. So they're stuck in that cabin now that they moved to. This is basically their only property. At this point, the family refuses to leave the cabin, and they say they're being victims of religious and political persecution, which again comes up in all these stories. Anytime someone like basically tries to take your guns or illegally like tries to arrest you, they're like, "Oh, well, this is obviously because of my religious views."
Yeah, the whole like taking your guns fucking argument is played out. The government will never take your. You know how much of a murder that would be if they did that, like taking that amendment away from them.
Yeah, that's not going to go over well, especially in America. In
It's
Australia, they could do it because it's not part of their constitution.
Exactly.
The issue is like now it's like if you do it now, I'm just saying if we're talking about like it's all the like it like the probably the people who have their licensing like license for their gun and permits, they're probably going to be the ones giving away their guns. Yet all these street criminals or whoever else that still have their guns, you can't go collect it from them. They're not going to give up all their guns. So now you're left with a bunch of innocent. Well, you know what I mean, like people who had their permits and their licenses.
Yeah, that were doing it properly.
Who have no guns anymore, and left with a whole whack ton that criminals have.
Yeah,
right?
so
you can't do it really.
I mean, the cops try and do things like, hey, trade in your gun, I'll give you an ice cream cone or something.
Yeah,
whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, and they just give them their shitty old gun.
Yeah, like here you go. Fucking, I want ice cream. Right? Like who doesn't want ice cream?
I'd rather a gun.
Ice cream.
What kind of ice cream?
Yeah, it depends on if it's Rocky Road. Fuck that gun.
Ben & Jerry's.
So in 1991, Vicky Weaver. So Vicky Weaver is his wife. They also have 2 kids at this time. Stop talking about ice cream.
I just thought about Haagen-Dazs, and I was like, man, I want to pick up one of those ice cream cones.
This is a very serious conversation.
We're stopping by for a drumstick. I'm just saying.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Where were we?
Sorry.
So there's Vicky Weaver, which is the wife of Randy Weaver, and they also have 2 kids. They have a daughter, I don't remember her name off the top of my head, and then they have a son named Sammy. So Vicky Weaver starts writing threatening letters to federal agencies saying the tyrant's blood will flow, you know, just weird stuff. So during this time, they do not leave their land for 16 months. Because they're a fugitive by law. The police haven't come for them, but they just stay there. They don't want to leave. So they have people like dropping them off food and stuff. So at this point, the FBI creates this operation called Operation Northern Exposure, where they set up a bunch of cameras, solar-activated cameras, and like night vision cameras, and they record 100 hours of footage around the Weavers' cabin.
Again, like my big thing is it's a fucking shack. Mm-hmm. Like, how hard is it to infiltrate a shack?
Well,
it's not like it's a fucking.
They believe this guy is highly armed.
Okay, all right. So they just don't want to bust in and like fucking. Well, I mean, they have reasons for like illegal activity, right?
Yeah.
At this point, like they could easily get him arrested.
They have a warrant for him. Yeah.
So
okay, he's a fugitive.
So they have a warrant. So why don't they just go in?
Man.
SWAT just sends
Isn't
SWAT
that
out
the point
to
of a warrant?
Yeah, like to be able to have that right to be able to do that.
I guess they thought it would be better to see what's going on. And it kind of makes sense, because in these cameras, they find out that there's another guy staying with them, and his name is Kevin Harris. And he is another part of this. So they find out Kevin Harris is staying with them.
Can you find these videos online? Just out of curiosity.
There are pictures from the videos that show Vicky Weaver. I haven't seen...
The actual video itself?
I've seen videos of later during the siege, there's a bunch of journalists and shit, and there's a bunch of videos of that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if they released the actual other videos. But the Waco siege, all those videos are up.
Yeah, I've seen the Waco stuff. Yeah, I'm just surprised it
There's a
hasn't
bunch of
leaked. You know, like with all the leaks that they've gotten, that the Ruby Ridge stuff hasn't really come out.
Yeah, I mean, I could look into that. I don't think the videos are out there though.
Okay.
So in August 21st of 1992, a three-man team. The names are. We'll just go with their last names here. So one of them is Deegan, the other is Cooper, and the other is Roderick. So they're basically a SWAT team. They have cameras and weapons, and they're hiking around Weaver's property. The dog that Weaver has starts barking, and then the Weavers leave their cabin to investigate. So Kevin Harris and Sammy Weaver. Sammy is the son of what's his name now? See, there's too many names here.
You're gonna be pissed off that I'm saying this just because I'm intervening the story again. But why the fuck is there a 3-man SWAT team taking out a guy who has a bunch of guns?
Yeah, exactly.
And you've done 100 hours of monitoring on it.
Like, you know this shit's going on. Like,
I guess they're just trying to investigate, but like, what's the point if they have all these cameras here?
Also, the dogs always have a dog. That's the best thing. Or have like an elephant with a bunch of LSD. You can do that shit too. Just have that shit there ready because it won't die. It'll be there forever.
Yeah.
Hide behind the elephant. It doesn't die.
No.
So Kevin Harris and Sammy come within a few yards of the agent. Oh, sorry. The dog began barking, so that let Kevin Harris and Sammy know that someone's around. So they came out of the cabin. They came within a few yards of Deegan. At this point, the Deegan aims his gun at them and yells that he's a U.S. Marshal and tells them to stop. Kevin Harris responds by shooting Deegan fatally with his rifle. And then the other Marshal, Larry Cooper, fires 3 times at Kevin Harris. And he's hit now. Kevin Harris is injured. One of the SWAT team members, who is actually a Marshal, is dead.
It's so fucked up how fast things can go south. You know, like in such a quick moment of like just going out and one person's now dead, another person's injured, regardless of which side is which.
Yeah, that all happened in like 10 seconds.
That is a very short period of time for things to go south.
Okay, so at this time, the other agent, Roderick, shoots and kills another dog of the Weavers, fearing that it would give away his position. Even though I think shooting might give away
That might be a little bit louder than a bark. Just a little. Shut up. You're gonna give away my position!
So at this point, Sammy notices the other Marshal.
They'll probably bite the shit out of him, though.
Probably, yeah.
It's probably the right thing to do.
They always do that. The SWAT team always shoots dogs.
Yeah, dogs are the first thing to go down because they're like the biggest problem for them.
So at this point, Randy's son Sammy fires at the Marshal, and then Cooper, one of the other Marshals, fires at Sammy and kills him. So Sammy is 14 years old, and he has just been killed. I don't think the FBI or the Marshals know he was killed at this point. So Kevin Harris, who is now injured, retreats back to the cabin. So at this point, Deegan and Sammy Weaver are dead. So there's one officer dead, one of the Weavers is dead. Weaver's 14-year-old son.
Fuck.
Now he's pissed.
Yeah, if you really want to fucking get somebody like in a bad place to like set off something like this,
this is how you do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Kill his dog and his kid.
So by night, Ruby Ridge has a bunch of police there. There's U.S. Marshals, there's the Border Patrol, State Police, National Guard, the FBI is there. And I think this is when a bunch of...
And are they still in the house right now at this point?
Yeah, they're hiding in the cabin. The FBI is surrounded all around the complex.
One of them's injured, correct, right?
Yes, Kevin Harris is injured. Sammy is dead.
Okay.
One of the Marshals is dead as well.
Okay, now when we said, just to clarify, just so that we're on the same page, it's 3 right now of the FBI that are surrounding them, right? Or the SWAT team?
No, now there's
more.
Now
there's more?
They've retreated. Okay, now there's teams.
Okay, now we're looking at a lot.
They're a little bit farther away.
Okay.
So on August 22nd, the FBI revises the rules of engagement. So the rules of engagement are when you are allowed to shoot at a person. At this point, they say that anyone, if you have a shot at Weaver, kill him. They specifically say, the actual letter says, if any adult male is observed with a weapon, deadly force can and should be employed. There are pictures of this letter. So this is a big thing that the conspiracy theorists will say, that they're like, oh, they're clearly trying to kill the guy. And it's like, okay, well, they have a dead officer. They're kind of authorized at this point to kill him, if they have a clear shot. So this is when the television crews start setting up camp, and the FBI brings in their giant APC, armored personnel carrier. I believe this is the next day. The Weavers leave their cabin to go to a shed that is nearby where they had left their son's body. They're armed, but they went out there, I guess, to, I don't know, see their
dead son. And the property is
son.
still being surveillanced.
Yeah, there's tons of people watching the
Okay.
property.
That just sounds like a bad idea, but okay.
FBI sniper Lon Horichi, he fires at Randy and hits him in the right arm. So then they run back to the cabin. Vicky Weaver, who is his wife, comes out of the cabin trying to figure out what's going on. She's got their, less than a year-old baby in her arm.
Okay, trying to figure out what's going on. I think it's pretty
Some sort of
she's like,
gunshot.
what's going on out here? I keep hearing all these gunfires. Where's
Maybe
my
I should-
son?
Why is there
Maybe I
lights?
should
Why
bring
is
my
the
baby
dog
out here.
on the ground?
Come with me so you don't cry inside.
Yeah.
She's got a
It's-
baby in his arm. She's got a gun.
It's not a good idea.
Seems fishy. Okay.
Okay.
So the FBI sniper fires again, and this bullet passes through Vicky's head, and then hits Kevin Harris in the chest. So Vicky is now dead, who was holding a baby, and Kevin Harris has been shot again. So this is the second time this guy has been shot.
Heavy.
On August 23rd,
So a day later now?
the FBI has their APC out, and they're basically just destroying trees and sheds on their property, and then they discover Sammy Weaver's body, which is the 14-year-old boy who is dead. This is the first time the marshals and the FBI say that they realize there is a casualty. That's what they say, even though they shot and killed someone 2 days before, and a sniper just shot someone. But this is when they say that this is the first time they realize that there has been a casualty.
I wonder why that is. Why they held off on that.
Who knows? So 5 days later, the Weavers are still in their cabin, just kind of hiding. There's a retired colonel named Bo Gritz, who is a retired Vietnam veteran, and he's big in the right wing. He comes around and does a lot of right wing things.
He sounds very southern. Bo
Bo
Gritz.
Gritz. So he comes up and tries to arrest 4 officials for citizen's arrest.
Okay.
He's a Vietnam vet. This man can do what he wants.
Citizens arrest when there's a SWAT siege going on.
Yeah, well, he tried to arrest.
Me.
Yeah. You?
Yeah.
Please
Citizens
come,
arrest.
men with the guns
Down on the ground.
So, at this point,
That's fucking fishy.
Gritz
That's
wanted to
weird.
start negotiating, and they let him. The FBI lets him because, he's a pretty high up colonel. They don't know what they're gonna do. They're just they've been sitting around for 4 days doing nothing. So a lot of the agents say that more was accomplished in the few hours that Gritz was there than in the last 4 days. So the last 4 days they were hiding in the cabin trying to negotiate a surrender.
I think they were playing Hungry Hippos or something.
And so at this point, what's the why aren't they because they've been monitoring this house, so all they know is there's one guy in there and a baby, right?
They believe there's 2 people.
Two
in there,
people and a
'cause Kevin
baby now,
Harris,
yeah.
the
Oh, okay,
baby,
right.
and Randy
and the
Weaver.
wounded, right? Okay.
And then they know Sammy Weaver is dead.
Right.
I don't think they know about Vicky,
Okay.
but
How
she has
would-
been shot in the head.
How would they not know?
Yeah, snipers can't be hit.
Yeah.
It's not paintball.
Hit.
You're out.
I got one. This girl's out.
You're out. Walk to
Somebody
the
put a
side.
dead tag on her arm.
Not funny to joke about, I guess.
I guess
So
not.
at this point, a friend of the family's named Jackie Brown, she comes around and they help Gritz negotiate a surrender. So they send up Jackie Brown to go talk to the Weavers and stuff. Jackie comes back and she asks for something to clean with, because that's what you do. There's blood everywhere. A bunch of people have been shot, so she wants to clean up the situation. So the FBI agent...
Sorry, we're talking legitimately clean, like clean as in wipe down the walls and clean
Yeah.
it. Okay, all right.
I mean, there's blood everywhere. This is a fair request.
You want to live in there?
So
Blood everywhere.
the FBI agent in charge, Dick Rogers, he gives her a 5-gallon bucket of water and is like, yeah, go clean up Vicky's blood. This is destruction of evidence. You cannot be cleaning an active crime
Yeah, that's
scene.
super strange.
yeah, that is very strange.
And this
that
is
they
in
allowed it to
'92,
happen.
right? So
Yeah,
How
92.
The forensic at this point was getting to that point where it
was
makes
decent.
a
I
difference.
feel like
yeah.
it's still there where, you can't destroy evidence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that was for sure.
And the head of the FBI, the guy in charge, gave her this bucket and was like, yeah, you can go clean up. He obviously would know that this is destruction of evidence.
Was it because it was a misfire? Like, why?
See,
why?
it could be because they just killed an unarmed civilian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a time where these type of things were different, you know, like where they'd be
Brush
like,
it under the rug.
yeah, when they're writing that shit down and just being like, I found the arm in the fucking garbage. I found the leg sitting beside the house by the east trough. Her head was sitting in the, how do you spell boot? You know what? Fuck it, ditch.
It's like
Head's in the ditch.
It's like some Training Day shit, eh? Like
Yeah.
where you just make up a scenario.
Yeah, fuck it, it's there now. Like at this point, they know to be fucking careful. Like it's weird that they would just be like, oh yeah, fucking clean it up.
Especially the head of the
So on August 31st, Kevin Harris, who desperately needs medical attention, he surrenders.
So this is 10 days later now, or 9 days later.
11 days.
He'd be bleeding.
11 days, okay.
Wow, yeah, desperate
Yeah.
is not the
He
word
got
to
shot
use there.
twice.
Like
The siege went on for a total of 11 days.
that's fucking insane.
Wow.
So Kevin Harris surrenders, and then a day later, Randy Weaver, he's promised representation from this like really famous lawyer named Gary Spence, and then he surrenders to the federal authorities. He comes out of the cabin. So again, the whole thing lasted 11 days before he finally come out. So April 14th, 1993. This is almost a year later. This is when the trial actually happens. So it's a murder trial for Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris. Eventually, they are charged with murder and conspiracy. Kevin is found not guilty on all charges, and Randy is found not guilty of everything except the original fail to appear in court. So this is when he didn't come to court and stayed in his cabin for 16 months. So he served 6 months for that. And then in 1995, they sued the government. And the federal government settles a civil suit for $3.1 million.
What?
I get it though. Like, look at how messy the government was
Yeah,
with
that-
that.
for
It was
sure.
insanely
It was-
messy.
It was definitely a fuck up on their part.
Yeah, oh for sure. Like
Like how
everything
they
that you just
handled it.
like hearing that step by step of what happened. It definitely sounds like the government didn't know what they were doing. They took on more than they could handle because they just didn't follow protocol. Period. Like they just
My question is,
And that is
though,
something you'll see in the next one, too.
My question is though, how did, like, because they had surveillance all over the place. You said they had over 100 hours of
yeah.
surveillance. Like, how did they not see either one of them? Like, they had a dead agent or a dead SWAT member.
Yeah.
How did they not catch that? And
Well, they knew
convict
he
them as
was
murder?
dead. But
But it's on. Is this okay? My question
You know
is:
what I
this an
mean?
owned property,
Because-
or did they just squat in this area?
no, this was theirs. They owned this property.
Then that
And there was
person has
surveillance.
invaded theirs without any prior knowledge as to why.
But you had a
there.
warrant.
He was a fugitive,
So-
yes. I don't know.
know what I mean?
That is all down to the judge, and the jury, and what happens.
But he got acquitted of it.
Yes,
And, okay.
because he has a great defense lawyer.
I
That's
mean, it sounds
basically
like it, yeah.
Happens
Yeah.
lots. Okay.
It takes just a small mistake.
Yeah. Well,
So
that
free
was
to get away
that
with
is
it,
sloppy shit right there.
Yeah.
That's
On April 19th, 1993, is the 4th day of the trial of Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris's trial. And this is when siege starts in Waco, Texas, and a fire breaks out. 80 members of the Branch Davidian cult are killed. The jurors in the trial are told to ignore the incident. So
because they can't have any like external factors.
Yeah,
right?
something like that can't affect the current,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So this is where the Waco siege comes in. So it started
What is Waco?
Waco, Texas.
Yeah,
Waco is the
okay,
place.
yeah.
W-A-C-O.
Okay.
So
It was a jail, right?
The Waco, like the siege where it
Yeah.
happened.
No.
It wasn't a jail.
it was a compound.
Yeah, it was a compound.
They
Oh,
had this
okay.
big giant compound where all these Branch Davidians live.
Oh, okay,
It was
okay.
basically at this point, as from what my knowledge is, it's kind of like a cult. The way that they treated it, or the way that they were like.
So a called compound? With
Yes.
Like a
yeah,
bunch of, okay.
yeah, basically.
So the Branch Davidians are a group of Seventh-day Adventists, which is a type of religion, I guess, some sort of Christianity. The Branch Davidians separated from them in 1955, I believe. Hold on, I'm just lost in my notes here. Yeah, they separated in 1955. The group was led by the guy who it's not his real name, but he goes by David Koresh.
That's the name I know.
Yeah, everyone knows this guy's name.
Yeah, as soon as you hear that, it just brings back memories of being that young and hearing about this.
That's
stuff on
because
the
this was
news,
so televised.
Yeah.
So they thought he was hoarding a bunch of guns. So the ATF got a search warrant for him, because they thought he had a bunch of M16s. There was, at some point, there was a UPS parcel intercepted that had a bunch of AR-15 receivers, which are like parts of the guns.
You can just like fucking order that shit through the mail?
Yeah, you could back in the day. There was a lot of,
Probably still could.
like, back out of magazines, you could order guns and shit like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, he did actually have basically a stockpile of weapons.
Are you telling me that like that shit in the back of the comic books when I was a kid, where it'd be like order a fucking X-ray glasses?
If you
and stuff,
actually
and
called
then
those, you would
get this shit.
You actually get X-ray goggles.
I never got my X-ray goggles. I always thought it was fake.
Did you ever send the coupon in the mail?
I should have.
Should have sent them $3. So,
You know what shit I got from Kool-Aid stamps?
Hey, Kool-Aid.
Remember those fucking packages? You get
that
points,
shit.
and you get like
remember,
you need
like,
like
Pepsi
300
had
packages of
Yeah.
Kool-Aid to like get anything.
So we got like 3 different generations on things. You had the Kool-Aid one, you had a Pepsi one, I had chips. It was chips that did that thing. Like the Hostess chips did that shit. Be like, get enough points and you can put it towards this. Like,
Yeah.
fuck.
Buy 7,000 bags of Kool-Aid.
So in February of 1993, the Waco Tribune published an article called "The Sinful Messiah." It was a series of articles alleging that Koresh had been physically abusing children in the compound and committed statutory rape by taking multiple underage brides. According to the paper, Koresh declared he was entitled to at least 140 wives.
Wow,
That's a lot. Man, you know, that's a lot of disappointment.
that's a whole lot.
That's a lot of fucking arguments.
Almost
Like,
a new wife every
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of wives.
Jesus Christ, 2, isn't it? Fucking 100 and something?
He had also fathered
Full of
at least
stress.
a dozen children, and some of these mothers became brides as young as 12 or 13. So he's not a good guy. This David Koresh was not a good guy.
Yeah.
Scumbag for sure.
All the
Needs
way
to
through,
go.
yeah.
In addition to allegations of sexual abuse, Koresh and his followers were suspected of stockpiling illegal weapons. So, in 1992 is when the ATF receives a call from UPS saying that there was a package they had that had broken open upon delivery to the Branch Davidians' residence, and it revealed a bunch of firearms, black powder, and grenade casings. So it was obvious they were stockpiling weapons, and the ATF knew about it at this point.
You can get into the story a little bit later, but my curiosity is, like, did they have any reasoning as to what it would be used for, like a motive for them to actually get all these things?
Well, the Branch Davidians were one of these religious cults who thought the end times was coming.
Mhm.
So, I don't know if the ATF knew this, but yeah, they were ready to go down with the fight.
Okay.
And they had a lot of guns.
And how many followers? How many people were in that compound again?
A lot. Hundreds.
And yeah, but the death toll is like
52
everybody.
or something.
Yeah. A lot of people
Sorry.
followed him. Like, he was. That's the thing about cults, right? Like, is the leader is a fucking clever person. Like, they know how to talk to
Oh, for
people.
sure.
They know how to get
To
under
influence
their,
that
yeah.
many people to like
It's-
basically give their entire life to you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fucking insane.
it's-
Well, like, there's that. What's the name of that cult where they 300 people drank the Kool-Aid?
Jonestown.
Jonestown. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another fucking situation.
How you
Just
get
as crazy.
300 people to kill themselves.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I've seen the picture of everybody on the ground. It's fucking eerie that there's that many people, and it wasn't like there's
Oh, there's
one
videos.
person's like gonna walk away from it. Oh god, I
Didn't
don't
he
want to see
back
videos
out?
of that. What's that?
Didn't he back out?
No, they all died. I
He
think.
tried
Oh.
to.
Yeah, he
Yeah, I
tried to,
thought-
but he's dead. I'm pretty sure he died.
Oh, okay.
So, the ATF attempted to execute a search warrant on February 28th, 1993. This was any surprise was lost when a TV reporter who had been tipped off about the raid asked for directions from a U.S. Postal Service man who happened to be Koresh's brother-in-law. So basically this reporter was like, hey, there's this raid going down at the Waco compound. How do I get there?
What a
And
dummy.
this postal worker was like, hey, I think you guys are getting raided. So they were definitely tipped off.
What the fuck? Like, how is that?
That's
Is that
crazy,
just
eh?
serious coincidence, or like, that's fucking insane for
Did
that
he work?
type of.
So did he work for the postal office maybe to smuggle a lot of these guns in? Like it was a premeditated plan.
It could be. I don't really know.
That's very strange. Okay.
So the ATF agents stated that they heard shots coming from within the compound, while the survivors, the people who survived the actual fire, claimed that the first shots came from the ATF agents outside. A suggested reason may have been an accidental discharge of a weapon by the ATF, which caused them to basically open fire. Other people think that it was the ATF's dog team, which were a team of people who were sent to kill the dogs in the kennel. So it could have been either of those.
Either way, shit hits the fan at this point.
Yeah, basically, if you watch some of the documentaries, there's a bunch of footage of them firing into this barn. There's footage of a bunch of ATF agents climbing up onto a roof and shooting through a window.
That's what I remember seeing.
Yeah, you can see ATF agents getting shot. So 3 National Guard helicopters were used as a distraction, and they took incoming fire, but according to them, they did not return fire, which can be argued that they did. Which I think I get into that a little bit later. So during the first shots, Koresh was wounded in the wrist. Within the first minute, one of the Branch Davidians called 911 and told them to stop shooting. There are tapes of this. You can hear them saying, "This is us at Waco. People are shooting at us." The 9/11 operators had no idea that there was this raid going on.
It's weird that there's no communication between like the lower levels and the higher
dispatch,
levels of things.
just so you know.
Yeah, hey, there might be some fucking firing going off, like something.
And you can hear on the tapes.
A lot of those people were innocent too, right? Like they're not.
Yeah, I mean, as innocent as it is,
they weren't
they
weren't ready to put their life and fire back, right?
They're victims at this point.
Hold on.
In my opinion,
this is where it comes in. They did not execute their search warrant properly. The ATF, they did not notify them that they had a search warrant. So in the eyes of the Branch Davidians, there was a bunch of people who came in and started firing them. They're well within the right to defend their property.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. And that makes sense totally.
Like as you say, like innocence, like they're as innocent as being victims of like the circumstance that they're in.
Yes, that's pretty fair. Yeah. So in the audio tapes, you can hear this guy shouting, "Here they come!" That's them shooting, not us. You can hear a bunch of fucking rounds go off, like fully automatic rounds. Sheriff Lynch contacted the ATF and negotiated a ceasefire. But in one of the documentaries that comes out, the sheriff states that he withdrew only after they were out of ammunition. So they ran out of ammunition pretty quickly, about 45 minutes into the shootout, but the Branch Davidians had tons of ammo.
Now, when we say 45 minutes in, how much damage has been done within that time? Do we think a lot of the death toll that came up was within the first bit of it, or is it because of the fires and stuff?
No, that was definitely from the fires.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Branch Davidians had plenty of ammo. At the end of the ceasefire, there were some dead from the ATF that the Branch Davidians allowed them to take them out. They allowed them to be evacuated and held their fire when the ATF retreated. So the Branch Davidians let the ATF take their bodies and bring them out and did not shoot at them. So at first, the Davidians only had contact with local news media, and Koresh gave phone interviews. But then the FBI cut off their communication. So the next 51 days, communication with those inside was by telephone by a group of 25 FBI negotiators. Why they had 25 negotiators, I have no idea.
So this is a standoff now for that long, 51 days.
It sounds like fucking like war games.
Yes, it's a super long standoff, and
That's
it gets
insane.
It gets crazy. The final Justice Department report found that the negotiators were criticized for not having enough commanders and for the commanders undercutting the negotiations. In the first few days, the FBI believed they made a breakthrough when they negotiated with David Koresh that he would come out peacefully in return for a message recorded by Koresh broadcast on national radio. So Koresh wanted to do a broadcast on national radio and then he would come out. So they allowed him to do the broadcast, but then Koresh told the negotiators that God had told him to stay in the buildings.
That God, eh?
Yeah, he's toughy.
How do you say no? Like, all right, yeah, you're right.
Okay.
I think I got to stay here.
Like a great idea.
After this, the negotiators managed to release 19 children. So they got 19 children out of there. During the siege, the FBI sent a video camera to the Branch Davidians. So the Koresh and his followers were allowed to make a video explaining basically what had happened. That video is out. You can see that video. There's a bunch of recordings. You'll hear it in a lot of rap songs, like the actual samples from David Koresh. Like if you've ever heard that lines, well, I'm sorry some of your guys got killed, but God will have to sort that out, won't he? That is a David Koresh quote. And that is from that video. So in the video, it shows that everyone is basically there on their own will, or it seems like they're there on their own will, and no one basically wants to leave. These people are basically brainwashed, but
well, that's
they're
like
cultists, right?
Yeah.
That's,
Mhm.
well, yeah.
They're victims of circumstance. You know, just they got put in the situation where they believe full wholeheartedly.
And how do you
that they're
leave
right.
at that point?
Yeah.
What do you like? Either you're taking
Well,
some kind of imprisonment,
that's
or you're fucking disowning the leader that you've followed for however many years.
that's why they
going
say
against God's will.
And going
religion
against God's will. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, religion is one of the biggest causes of wars and
Yeah.
stuff like that, specifically because of this exact moment where
It's
they
crazy how you
believe
can
they're
how
right
one guy
because
can
of
just be like, God says to do this. You know, who you've now looked at as a disciple or whatever the case may be, and you can just like totally alter your thoughts and give in to whatever that person says now.
Yeah, just be
Yeah.
submissive, right?
Just
Like,
because you said like
Well, it takes a certain type of personality.
yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
So as the
Yeah.
siege wore on, there were two factions in the FBI. One believing that they could negotiate their way out of this, and another one believing that they just had to, like, storm it. So they tried a bunch of really aggressive shit. So they were doing sleep deprivation techniques on the Koreshes. So they set up a bunch of speakers. And, like,
Nice.
in the documentaries, you can see some of this.
It's
they're
just like Van Halen Panama playing nonstop. Like, sorry.
Panama. No, they were
Tiny
playing.
bubbles.
They were
Just-
playing pop music.
Oh, the
Really?
worst
I don't know
music.
why. Yeah, there were sounds of like jet planes.
Let's
They-
give him 103. Let's give him some hot music.
Just a radio DJ on there.
Exactly.
Well, how's it going
Spinning
there?
from the
strip club DJ.
This is Waco 106.
We got Tammy. I'm here at the Waco Siege.
And this is Van Halen's Panama for the 13th time.
32
I
times
hate
in
my
a row.
So they were also playing like sounds of rabbits being slaughtered. So they're basically
Jesus.
just trying to stop them from
Torture.
sleeping and fuck with their head.
Have you ever? This is like a side thing, but have you ever seen that like experiment that the Russian government did, where they like put
The
that?
sleep deprivation.
The
Yeah.
5 days,
That's
6
fake.
days.
Is that fake?
Absolutely.
Is it fake?
I
Seriously?
didn't know.
I never
Like,
really
'cause
looked
you-
into it, but I
No,
was.
it
Neither
was
did I.
absolutely
The video
fake.
kind of looked fucked, but
Okay.
okay. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
I trust
Thanks
you.
for ruining
You
that
said-
for me.
That's why I'm here.
It's either
It
make you
does look
depressed
fake,
or
though.
angry.
But I
One
wonder
of the
what would happen to you. Like if you're that sleep, you'd
You
just
would die.
right?
Yeah, you die.
You would
Yeah.
die. You would hallucinate,
the-
then you would die.
But the whole thing with that video was they were putting like a chemical compound in them to like keep them awake, right?
You would still die. You would have a heart attack.
You'd probably die. Yeah, you're right. You would die, right? That you'd have to be under some. You're right.
So
It's
You're
pretty
right.
strenuous stuff, yeah.
at this point, they had about 9 armored personnel carriers, and they were firing a bunch of like CS gas at them and stuff. Just they were trying everything they could to get these people out of there. The armored vehicles repeatedly drove over the grave of one of the Branch Davidians, despite protests from the Branch Davidians and the negotiators.
But at this point, at day 50, do you give a fuck?
Yeah.
Like, okay,
seriously.
fuck every negotiation we've made with them, they have backed out of and did not follow through
I
on.
know, but at this point, you're literally taunting them. That is going to make them shoot back.
Yeah, but when you're that angry, like, I mean, day 50, I'd be fucking just done.
Yeah,
like,
but
like
you don't-
whatever's going to get them out of this fucking compound. I'm not agreeing with
But
what the
that's not
government
going to
did.
get them out. That's going to get them to engage in another firefight.
Yeah, it's true. You're
I
kind of
guess so,
pissing
yeah.
them off. You're
All
kind
right.
of reigniting the fire.
This is why I'm not a negotiator for the
Yeah.
FBI, because I would have driven over those caves twice.
Who gives a fuck?
It's day 52!
Yeah, come on, guys.
I
I just
wanna
want to
go
go home.
home.
Yeah, I've been out here for 52 days. Come on.
Fucking bullshit.
So the ATF shot at all their
Tired of Panama.
sorry.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
so the FBI shot at all their water tanks. They cut off their power. Like they were really trying to get these people out. They
So
were-
eventually they know there's going to be either a standoff or they're going to retreat.
definitely.
At some point or another here. They're going to be out of supplies.
But the Branch Davidians were heavily armed. They had 50 calibers and stuff.
Oof.
I thought their ammo ran out.
No, the ATF's ammo ran out.
The
Branch
ATF?
Davidian, yeah.
What?
The Branch Davidians still had
They have
After
tons of
45
ammo.
minutes, the ATF.
Yeah.
Okay, so but they've
Okay,
had
that's
52
fine.
days to go
Yeah,
across
yeah,
the street and pick some
Yeah,
fucking...
well, now the FBI is here. They have lots of ammo. They have fucking tanks. They have like
They
10
just don't want to
tanks.
start.
Well, yeah,
that
I
up
guess they
again.
took the tanks over top of the fucking
Okay.
graves.
Yeah.
So at this point, on April 19th, this is a good like 50 days in. They used explosive rounds to put holes in the walls of the buildings and then pumped in a bunch of tear gas. So they were
Solid strategy. Yeah.
less than lethal, trying to get them to fucking come out. Over the day, they pumped over 2 days. They increasingly put more and more CS gas in there. Over this time, they kept using the loudspeakers to tell the Branch Davidians that no one would be harmed as long as they came out and not to fire on the vehicles. The FBI had been permitted to return any incoming fire, but no shots were fired. When several Branch Davidians opened fire, the FBI just increased the amount of gas they used. So they also used 40mm CS gas grenades in the form of M79 grenade launchers very early in the morning. So they fired 2 of these rounds into the construction site, and around this time, the FBI started to run low on CS rounds. So instead of using CS, they used tear gas, made by this company, which they're just calling Company F. And it turned out that they were unusable pyrotechnic rounds.
It's like this never-ending build-up. When the fuck does shit hit the
Yeah,
fan?
it's like a constant like dick
God
tease
damn.
the whole way
Yeah,
through.
exactly.
So
Like,
they-
just
me-
put it
let
in your
me
mouth
go,
already.
okay? God damn.
So the rounds they were using ended up being bad rounds. They
No, we're talking about the tear gas that's going through?
yes.
Okay.
Eventually, they ran out of those and started using these other rounds, which were they could cause a fire. Basically,
When did these
'cause CS
fucking-
gas is very flammable.
What did these people do back? When did they hit back here? When does this shit start
They
going
were
down?
shooting back at them a little bit, but like they've done a lot of their damage.
Yeah, that's the way that like, it sounds like the FBI was being very like resourceful and trying not to cause more of a problem than it already is.
Yeah,
by like
exactly.
we're going to return fire, but they're not returning fire. You know, like
Yeah.
when it's been shot at. Yeah, I don't know. It looks like they're trying their best to not
Get
cause a
chaotic.
bigger problem than what it already is.
All right, so now I have a timeline of April 19th. So at 5:50 a.m., the agents called the Davidians and told them that told them to take cover. Instead of answering the phone, they threw the phone outside of the front door. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, that equals good.
I'm done talking.
5 minutes later, the FBI deploys 2 CEVs, which are basically giant tanks, to both of the buildings.
At what time?
5:55, so 5 minutes later.
Okay.
5 minutes later, FBI surveillance tapes from devices planted in the walls of the recording hear a man inside saying, "Everybody wake up, let's start to pray." Then they hear, "Pablo, have you poured it yet?" They heard that twice. Then they said, "In the hallway, things are poured, right?" So this
They're
is what
talking
they
about
heard.
gasoline at this
Yes,
point.
they're pouring gasoline everywhere.
Oh, they started the fire.
That's the thing, right?
So now the
That's
first
where the
tank
conspiracy
receives
comes in.
order to spray 2 bottles of CS gas into the left corner. 6:04, armored vehicle with a ram breaks through the wall, pumps in a bunch more tear gas, rips off, leaves like an 8-foot hole in the building. Agents claim the hole not only allowed insertion of the gas, but also provided means of escape. Agents see shots from inside the compound directed at the tanks. So they punched a hole in the wall, threw in more gas, said that it was for them to escape. 6:10, the FBI surveillance tapes record, don't pour it all out, we might need some later, throw the tear gas back out. FBI negotiator Brian Sage is recorded saying it's time for the people to come out, and surveillance tapes record a man saying, "What? No way." So they kept trying to get them out at this point. FBI, at 6:12, they hear in the recordings of the Branch Davidians, it says, "They're going to kill us, they don't want to kill us." 6:31, the entire building is now full of tear gas. They had gas masks, but I don't believe they had children's gas masks. So now they're firing. At 6:47, FBI fires plastic non-incendiary tear gas through the windows. So just more tear gas. 7:23, FBI records a male Branch Davidian saying the fuel has to go all around to get started. Well, there are 2 cans here if that's poured out soon.
Okay, just a pause on this and a quick question. Imagine yourself being in that fucking compound and hearing all these things going on. This is an hour of time. Well, I guess 2 hours of time that this kind of come in. Like, at what point do you like, okay, maybe we're on the wrong side of this and get the fuck out?
Yeah.
But all these followers are still
Devoted and
in there. That to me is the most astonishing thing in the whole story.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I wanted to bring a point up on that. Like, I just can't believe that these people were that willing.
Yeah.
Yeah, these people were dedicated, to say the least. So, for about an hour, they're firing off more shots, they're throwing in more tear gas, they're sending in more tanks. And then at 8:24, the audio portion of the FBI videotape ends at the request of the pilot. So that... I don't know who... I believe it was one of the FBI guys, but they had turned off the audio recording.
Anytime the FBI does something like that, I always assume it's for sinister reasons.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. At 9 o'clock, the Branch Davidians unfurl a banner that says, "We want our phone fixed." 13 minutes later, the tank comes in again through the front door to deliver more gas. 9:20, FBI surveillance records a meeting between several identified males saying they have 2 cans of Coleman fuel, and they told them to empty all of it, and they were heard saying there's nothing left. At 10, a man is seen waving a white flag on the compound. He is advised over the loudspeaker that if he is surrendering, he should come out. He does not, but at the same time, a man comes out and grabs the phone. 11:17 to 12:04. According to the government, a series of remarks such as, "I want a fire, keep that fire going, do you think I could light this soon?" indicate that the Branch Davidians have started a fire around 11:30. Surviving Branch Davidians testified that Coleman fuel had been poured out, and the fire experts report that without question the people inside the complex had started multiple accelerated fires. 11:43, another gas insertion takes place, with the armored vehicle moving into the building on the right and dispersing more tear gas while the Branch Davidians try to avoid it. One of the wall collapses, and then at 12:07, the first visible flames appear in 2 spots in front of the building. First on the left of the front door on the 2nd floor, then a short time later on the right side of the front of the building, and a 3rd spot on the back side. FBI agent reported seeing a Branch Davidian member igniting a fire from the front door. At 12:09, so 2 minutes later, Ruth Riddle, who is one of the Branch Davidians, exits with a floppy disk containing Koresh's manuscript on the 7 Seals. So that is his writings, some crazy book he wrote, which is actually super interesting. So at this point, the flames are being fanned by the winds. A couple minutes later, they call the fire department and get them to come over. The fire trucks show up at 12:22, where they are halted. They are not allowed to come in. 12:25, there's a large explosion. 12:30, the roof collapses. Around this time, there are several further explosions, and witnesses report the sound of gunfire, which the FBI attributes to animal cooking off from the fire. 12:55, fire begins to burn out, and the entire place is leveled. And then, finally, at 3 o'clock, they say that David Koresh is dead. So, this is where shit starts to get weird.
Yeah, because all the other stuff was standard and normal.
Yeah, it was pretty standard. So
shit happens every day.
If you watch, I can't remember which documentary it was. I think it's called Waco, The Big Lie. This documentary makes it out that the FBI went in there, and when they fired the tear gas, that is what set off
The fires?
Yeah, the fires. But there's a lot of evidence that shows that these guys started the fires themselves.
Yeah, the audio evidence. I've never seen, like, all that audio stuff I've heard myself. You can hear those people saying those things.
So when the autopsies were done, it showed a lot of people died from fallen concrete. Some children were locked in a spasm of death, which is consistent with cyanide poisoning. So that comes from when you burn CS gas, when there is a fire and CS gas.
There's a lot of gunshot wounds too that were, from what I've heard, not necessarily self-inflicted, but done by the Davidians themselves.
At least 20 Branch Davidians were shot, including 5 children under the age of 14. A 3-year-old was stabbed in the chest, and he believed a lot of the medical examiner who performed the autopsies believed a lot of these were mercy killings by the Branch Davidians trapped in the fire. So a lot of them were basically mercy killings so they don't burn to death. A lot of them were before people burned to death. They were just like, fuck it, we're taking our own lives.
We're making the choice of how we're going to die.
So the Branch Davidians insist that the ATF started the fire, and they insist that the ATF started firing at them before they fired back at them. There was also a man found dead in his room by the water tanks, and by the angle of the shot, it looks like the helicopters had shot down at him. He was in a silo, like a smokestack. He can be seen climbing to the roof and then falling down, and they didn't retrieve the body. They weren't allowed to retrieve the body for 5 days. And during this time, a news reporter said he had to call the ambulance, and there was no ambulance well into the firefight for, like, any of these people. So that is basically all I have on the Waco siege.
So where does the conspiracy come in with this?
People think that the FBI... Well, there were a lot of fuck-ups by the FBI and the ATF. The conspiracy is the FBI burnt down this building, killing all, 70 people that died.
And
that's not... The conspiracy is that they did it,
gun
though,
control.
Right?
Yeah, well, they think that it started out as the FBI came to took away these guns. They came because all these people had guns.
Right.
When in reality, this guy was molesting children.
Right.
The other conspiracy comes from, that they started the fire first. But there's a lot of evidence showing now, like, the evidence has come out recently that the fire was started by the Koresh.
That was going to be one of my questions, is when would the recordings release? Because I think that changed the story from being a conspiracy to being fact for a lot of people.
Yeah, a long time all there was a bunch of the documentaries showing that it was the FBI doing all this and it was the ATF's fault and all this. But now it started to come out that, like, they started the fires.
So what did the FBI have to gain to not release these things sooner? That's my question.
Well, usually there's a certain amount of time that you have to wait before you can actually release this stuff. But I don't know what they would actually gain by not releasing it.
Yeah.
I think what they gained by not releasing it is not admitting that they fucked up. Because they fucked up over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's messy.
Which they did not want to admit to.
And I think with the standings of what happens after this with Oklahoma City bombing, which was a direct sequel to exactly what's happened here, because Timothy McVeigh was the person that did the bombing on there, blamed almost everything that happened in Oklahoma on what happened in Waco and in
Ruby Ridge. So, some people think that David Koresh was inspired by Randy Weaver, which makes no fucking sense whatsoever. But Timothy McVeigh admits that he was inspired by what happened at the Waco siege. He whenever things like this happen, all these white supremacists and these people who think they're going to take away their guns rally around and they're like, we can't allow this to happen. So basically he blew up this fucking building,
that was supposed to have a bunch of ATF people in it.
Yeah,
that didn't have any. Really.
No, it was a daycare. He basically blew up the level of the daycare.
What did they want?
What did who want?
Like what? Like why didn't there's 25 negotiators? What was the negotiation? Like what did these guys want?
They wanted the Branch Davidians to surrender.
And what did the Branch Davidians want?
Nothing.
Not to surrender.
They thought that this was the end time.
So they basically were willing to die, and that's how they thought
they
were
thought
dying,
this is
and
how
that
they were
was-
supposed to die.
David Koresh said he was talking to God, and God said this is what he must
Well,
do.
that's what the Seven Seals kind of were, right? Like, we're about sacrifice and whatever. Yeah.
So he ends up writing this own book, and like a lot of this is documented. You can see videos of him and these people in the compound.
What I don't get
during
is,
the
like,
siege.
at what point, if you're, like, negotiating with a group like that, you know what I mean? A group that's willing to kill themselves, that are aware they're killing themselves, they're not willing to negotiate, and you've been holding them off for 52 days. At what point is it, like, where you can take appropriate action?
Lethal
Like,
force?
Yeah.
They,
Right? Like,
they didn't want to do that because there was a lot of women and children in there. That's why they kept trying to force them out with CS gas.
They were just trying to get them out so that they could save as many lives as they can. And
Yeah.
and that's this fucking sad part, is that, like, as many mistakes as they made, they were still
Successful
underneath
in
it all
saving some.
trying to do the best that they can do to save as many lives as they can, regardless of what ended up happening.
and what was the toll? How many people
The
died?
deaths were over 70.
Oh, okay.
And a
lots
bunch of
people.
them were like women and children.
And how many were in the compound?
A lot of
I think 150
So, like, half
people
of them
lived there.
died.
Yeah, some of them were able to get out.
Wow.
it's insane, like what has actually happened in this place. And again, this thing's totally inspired the Oklahoma City bombing,
Yes.
which was another very big bombing. A lot of people died. The fucked up part about that is, like we said, it was inspired over the ATF and him wanted, like, Timothy McVeigh trying to. Okay, Timothy McVeigh saw this as a. Most people saw this as like the government trying to take action on this. Timothy McVeigh and a lot of his followers, people that, like, believe in his circle of what was going on, it was the government trying to start a war,
And take away guns.
take away guns,
Or persecute them for their
Right.
religious or their
Right.
stances.
And here's the problem with gun shows. There's only a few of them out here that kind of do this type. Like, it's not everybody that goes to a gun show that's like this, but there's always this group of people in a gun show that, like, talk about the stuff about people trying to take away the guns and what they're going to do to save that. And Timothy McVeigh started selling. I can't remember what he was selling. He was selling stupid shit, like some, like, pamphlets and stuff about all the stuff that's happened, and he about this being this big war, and this is what he's going to do to stop it. Not necessarily talking about the bombing, but he did word of mouth did this type of thing. So to take out the ATF in this building, which ended up having virtual, I think out of the 80 whatever people that died, only I think it was 3 to 7% of them were part of ATF.
Yeah,
Well,
most
but-
of them were innocent.
Most of them were innocent people just going to do the government shit they have to do, like going to the building,
Yeah.
like, you know, like when you have to pay your taxes or whatever the fuck it is. It's like shit like that. People like that is the majority of the people that died, and children, because he parked the bomb right underneath the daycare that was in the city, in
That's
that
crazy.
area. And that daycare, fortunately, from what I understand, there was a change of management. Or people that, like the leader of the daycare, the day before was a new person, and most of the people did not like the person that got put in, so a lot of children didn't get taken to that daycare that day.
Yes,
But-
it could have been much worse.
Yeah, it could have been way worse, and a lot more children would have died in that situation.
There's also a conspiracy aspect to that. People believe that he was set up and he had a partner, and that the FBI helped him build this. I believe it was a fertilizer bomb he used. They believe they helped him build this bomb, and they knew he was going to do this, and they led him to do
It
this.
was a 2,000-pound bomb.
Shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, this thing, there's recordings of almost 15 blocks away, people having a
Bumpers. And
yeah,
broken
just
windows.
well, it's there's two that I know of. There's one where there was a guy driving, and he said it was straight out of a movie after the bomb happened. This was several blocks away, but he saw the axle from the truck that blew up, or the van that blew up, flying at him in, like, slow motion, and his quick action saved his family by, like, getting them to duck.
Wow.
But there is a audio recording of, like, a fucking mundane Monday meeting that was happening,
Yeah.
and they're just talking about bullshit, and then all of a sudden you just hear this bang. This is, keep in mind, like 10 to 15 blocks away, and it distorts the recording. Like, it's so loud and so big. By the end toll of that bombing, there was, I believe, there was only 37 to 47, somewhere in there, percentage of the building still standing from the bomb.
Well, they had to tear it down.
Yeah, well, it had to be tearing
How
down.
many people died from that one?
Over 80, I believe, if you can check the actual stats. But one of the most chilling stories in that entire thing was a woman that survived and trapped under the rubble, waiting to be saved, was holding on to a hand that was just a hand because it comforted her. It's the only thing she had was just a severed hand, and she was holding on to it. And this reference is coming from a podcast that I listened to called Last Podcast on the Left, but they were talking a lot of this stuff just so I can reference where I'm getting some of this information from. But there was also another one where this doctor, it was a large set doctor, trying to get people out, actually had to sever a woman's leg at the knee through the tendon with a pocket knife. Because he couldn't get in there with a scalpel. They kept breaking, and he couldn't actually get in because he was a bigger man, so he had to take somebody's pocket knife and sever her leg. This was a devastating thing.
168 dead.
160.
All civilians.
And it was, very few ATF members in that. And this was these people's, or this group of individuals' actions against what happened at Waco and what happened at Ruby Ridge.
Wow. The Timothy McVeigh, he was able to walk away from that, get into a car, and drive off, and he was caught like a day or two later, I think.
Yeah, it was
at a traffic stop.
It was well, he got arrested for something that had nothing to do with it.
Oh yeah, and then they let him go.
And then they found out that it was him. They're like, that guy that we had was actually this guy because the VIN number on. Remember that guy that I just said that he saved his family with the car with the axle? There was a VIN number on that led them straight to the rental place that he rented it from.
The Ryder truck.
And it was him. It was Timothy McVeigh, the person that they had just arrested that day. Because they actually arrested him the day of the bombing when he was getting away.
Yeah, as he was leaving.
It wasn't 2 days later that they found out. They were about to put him out on bail, like he was allowed to go. But they found out before they put him out on bail that, oh wait, this is the guy that rented the fucking truck, and then they kept him.
Wow.
Yeah, so they kept him. Otherwise, he would be fucking long gone if he actually got away from that, which is really, really, really fucked up. But the conspiracy on that aspect of things is like, there's a lot of bombing that he tried to do and a lot of things that he did that just was completely unsuccessful. And didn't make any sense, like he didn't know what he was doing, and then all of a sudden he has a 2,000-pound bomb that works fucking phenomenally. Like one of the most successful bombs. Yeah, a lot of people think there's a part. They have a John Doe and a John Doe 2 in the story that I don't really know much about. Nobody really knows much about them, but they do know that these other two people exist, and they think that might have something to do with the bombing. And that's where they're like, oh, the government helped make this bomb for it. And like the question in that, I mean, I think is in most people's heads is like, did the government have a lot to do with this? Is this actually the starting of a war of trying to eliminate guns in the civilians' hands? Like
that, and try and get rid of radicalized conspiracy theories.
I think some weird questions, like the psychology of it all, like what we said earlier, like what gets all these people, these followers, to jump on board with some kind of cultists, and what's this cycle, like what happened to this. Whoever may be the leader of this cultist clan to make them.
There were allegations that David Koresh was gang raped when he was 8, but I don't think that has ever been confirmed.
Yeah, that's the problem with the young things. Right? Yeah, when you go into the youth of people, like
usually where a lot of this comes from.
Well, they say that like serial killers, and almost all serial killers have something that they can track back to, like a brain injury.
Yeah,
that happened. There's like they call it like a trifecta of circumstances that can make a serial killer. One is a head trauma thing where you get like concussed in like a very specific area of your brain. Another one is bedwetting,
mental, sexual abuse.
And mental and sexual abuse. Those are the three trifectas. If these three things are almost predominantly in almost every serial killer or mass killer or in these cases, like this is a mass killer or spree killers, all these people have at least one attributing factor to one of those three things for the most part. So, like, was Timothy McVeigh a fucking bedwetter? I'm just going to assume so, because that makes me feel better.
Fair enough.
I think so.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, that's a fucking crazy story. I'm not going to lie, Aaron. That was a very heavy story by the end of it.
Oh, yeah. It gets pretty heavy.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Thanks for the fucking nice big cup of depression. I appreciate it.
That's what I'm here for, guys.
It's been a depressing podcast.
Awesome. So, what do you think? Like, I mean, that's the end of this one. So, what do you guys think? You can always hit us up on Facebook and give us your opinions on what this is happening, and you can kind of like branch off from Facebook for everything else that we kind of like associate ourselves with. But how about you, Dwight and Aaron? What's your opinions on this?
It's the government. It's always the government.
I knew Aaron would say that.
No, I was pretty sure that's where you were going to go with it. But what do you think?
Well, I think there was a lot of fuck-ups in both times by the FBI and the ATF. I don't think they actively planned anything. I think they just fucked up and tried to cover it up because that has happened over and over and over and over
I think so, too. I think it's a trend that it's always there, and there was a fuck-up, like Aaron said.
But this is like
they didn't handle it the best way, but they also at the same time tried to get a lot of innocent people out, and it sounded like they were attempting to save people and all
But
this.
this is the building blocks
So-
for conspiracy theories. Every conspiracy theorist knows Waco. I don't know why.
It's usually like it's like baby's first steps into conspiracies. Is the first one people hear about
That
until
9/11.
9/11. Yeah, now 9/11 is the one the first people hear about. But back then, that's what it was. But I'm on the same boat. Like I think we definitely are all unanimous with this. I think the government was just trying to cover up their stupid mistakes that they did, and in the process created a bombing that killed another 168 people unknowingly by them. Like they didn't realize that this was going to happen. So it's not a blame thing, but them trying to cover up those mistakes caused that problem too. So I do agree that a government wasn't trying to take people's guns away from them. I truly believe that the government trying to do that would be fucking murder on society.
Yeah, they would realize.
Such a bad
They
fucking
have
idea.
to realize that.
Yeah, there's no way that they don't know that already. Trying to take that amendment away from them would be a fucking terrible idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm on the exact same fucking page as the both of you.
Cool. Let us know what you think.
Well, if you didn't know, this is Why the Fuck Not, where three people sit around one table and bring one topic of discussion for your listening pleasure. It's been a lot of fun doing this, guys. I love doing this. I think we have one more conspiracy episode to kind of get through here, and that's Dwight's one. Do you want to keep that on the down low, or do you want to say
next week?
Wait till next week?
Yeah,
Oh,
throw
shit.
between the two.
I'm excited. I'm like really looking forward to what you come up. The last one you
Really
did
fun.
was great. So like the moon landing was
landing?
fucking sweet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing where this next one kind of goes. But yeah, so anyway, thanks for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. I'm Ed,
I'm Dwight.
And I'm Aaron.
and let's go get some fucking Haagen-Dazs.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.